Hello, everybody!
And goodbye, headphone users.
Welcome back to another episode of Because Nobody Cares.
Yes.
Podcast.
Hello.
I'm Adam.
I'm Jared.
And we're here to talk about things that no one else cares about, but we do, so shut up.
Indeed. Or don't shut up. Leave us a comment, throw sticks and stones at us. It's the internet. Do whatever you like.
Sticks and stones, they prick my bones. Shit, but they won't pay my hospital bills.
Well, we're not planning on going to the hospital today due to internet stones.
Internet stones.
But we shall see what happens. One never knows.
It's been a little while, but life's been kind of hectic. We're actually recording this a little earlier than we normally would.
Yes, we're adjusting our schedule for you because we love you. Well, we at least like you. We don't know you at all, so we can't say we love you.
We appreciate your viewership.
Absolutely, yes, totally. That.
And we have fun reading through your comments.
Yeah, we have fun in general.
Yes, very.
Yeah.
Alright! Mystical Wheel of Random, turn. Tell us the bullshit that we shall be talking about today.
Oh boy.
Commander Magic the Gathering.
Ooh.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about Magic the Gathering Commander specifically, I assume.
Well, this is going to be a fun topic.
Yeah, this will be one that you will probably have more to say than I will.
Yeah, however, I know you and Kat have recently gotten really involved in Commander, which I'm very happy about. I don't know why that's the case. Who could have drug you into such a sphere of fun and misery all at the same time?
There's no telling it. I have no idea. Just one day I woke up, I was like, all I want to play is Commander, because that's the good one.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm the one who at least initiated that, drug you guys in. So have you been having fun with it while we've been playing?
Oh yeah, of course.
Ooh, Kat is joining us. Hi, Kat. Hello.
But yeah, I've been having plenty of good time with playing Commander and whatnot.
Well, good.
It has, and I've just liked being able to get back into Magic, because
oh yeah,
like I've mentioned before, I started just collecting the cards. Like I didn't play the game, but I always thought the artwork was real pretty.
Right.
And so I started collecting the cards somewhere between Innistrad and Dyrmidon, I think it is.
Mirrodin?
Mirrodin.
There you go. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I started collecting somewhere between those two blocks.
Nice.
I could not tell you which ones they were.
Okay. You just have fond memories of the art.
Yes.
Everything, seeing.
I started collecting them based on solely the artwork. I knew there was a game with it, but I had no one else who lived near me who did play
you
it.
didn't actually have him.
I lived in a redneck bumpkiss town.
Welcome to where we live.
I played Yu-Gi-Oh, like the card game Yu-Gi-Oh. But the only other person who would play the game with me cheated at all the games we play, and he would throw an absolute fit if I didn't let him cheat. Because I knew he cheated.
So in other words, he was half of the antagonist from the show.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
Then I stopped being able to play that, and like I said, I started collecting the card, but I just collected them for collecting.
For the art and
for the artwork
for
and
to have the collection.
Yeah. It wasn't until a little bit later, like maybe a little while after me and Kat first started dating, that I started learning to play from some friends of ours.
We learned to play, I think, when I was going to college. Where we live now, I was going to college, and that first summer that we moved here, all of my friends had went home for the summer, but we had actually moved here, and I was going absolutely stir crazy. And so we went to the local GameStop, and one of the employees there regularly had people over playing Magic. Just this was standard. It wasn't Commander.
Yeah.
But playing Magic. And they're the ones that actually taught us how to play,
They
build
taught us
decks.
the proper way to play the game. Because we had some friends who taught us beforehand.
Yeah.
But it was... I can't remember how it was they taught us, but it was a highly incorrect system.
Ooh, okay.
You say that, but I don't remember ever learning, to play.
It was from the martial arts group.
Must have been before I joined y'all then, because I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's what it was. Because I was teaching you how to play
Based
through
on what
they
they
taught me.
told you.
And then when we went to the GameStop place, that's where we learned the actual correct
rules.
way.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, they taught us how to play, and we both collected the cards up to that point, and then we actually started playing after that. But again, that was standard, not Commander.
Yeah.
And then eventually, the guy who was running the little Magic stuff at the GameStop, but at one point or another, someone like ratted him out, or someone had brought it to the higher ups' attention that he was doing this during store hours,
and he wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, and they quickly put it into it.
Yikes.
Yeah, so they had to stop.
Which
Now,
sucked, but
Yeah.
it was understandable.
Yeah.
well, by that point, we had met the mutual friends that had introduced us,
Uh-huh.
and they played. So we played with them for a while until it just kind of died off. And we didn't
Yeah.
really have anybody to play with, and playing against each other kind of lost its appeal after about the 100th match.
And you guys had kind of the same decks that you just kind of played over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing was there were also points that we hated each other's decks to the point where we would during some matches there were actually heated tensions between the two of us. So we were actually almost like angry at each other during the match, and we was like, this isn't healthy.
Yeah. That's Magic the Gathering. Let's play this fun competitive card game with each other, and then we lose our friendships. It's like the Smash Brothers of the card world. Card playing
Honestly,
world.
the only thing I would argue is that the only card game that's worse than Magic in terms of ruining relationships is Uno.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're probably right about that.
This was back probably around 2014, 2015, and we stopped
before
playing.
our oldest was born.
Yeah, and then we just kind of trailed off playing, and our cards sat unused in storage, and we just never messed with it again until you entered the picture.
Hey, me. Yeah, so for anybody who doesn't know about Magic Commander, it is sort of the premier format for multiplayer. So if you want to play Magic the Gathering, but you want to play with more than, 1v1, Commander is pretty much the premier format that exists. Yes, you can play multiplayer in other formats, but Commander is kind of the gold standard for that.
Yeah, from my understanding, Commander was kind of what was made specifically
it was.
for multiplayer formats of the card game.
It was. And it's sort of evolved over the years, but sort of the way it works has stayed the same, where you have a 100-card deck, and your commander is a legendary creature, and then your deck is built around that legendary creature. And the idea is that if your creature dies or leaves the battlefield, it goes back to the command zone, and it costs a little bit extra mana, but every time it leaves the battlefield, but you do have the option of continuing to resummon your commander. And that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah, so basically you're never going to lose your commander to graveyard or exile or anything like that. It is always available to bring...
Well, unless you choose to.
Well,
There are a couple of exceptions.
I was going to say, the thing is, you're never going to lose it to exile or graveyard unless you either allow it to go there or somebody else steals it.
I was going to say that...
Which can happen. There are cards that do allow
gain
people
control,
to steal your
gain
commander.
control of target creature, and you can gain control of somebody's commander, and then that opponent who has your commander, you can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, and there's one that's like gain control of all commanders on the battlefield or in the command zone. So they don't even have to pay to summon it. They can just take it directly from your command zone.
There's also a planeswalker named Oko. I think maybe a lot of viewers might know who Oko is, but Oko has the ability target creature becomes a 3/3 elf and loses all other abilities, etc. So that's a way to sort of blank a commander. You can do that, where you just turn off somebody's commander, but it's still on the battlefield and it's just not being useful to them. So there are ways around the whole your creature got destroyed, now it goes back to the command zone thing.
Yeah. And of course, also on that, each deck has to be built around the commander in terms of their color as well. Because in Magic, there's
5 colors.
There's 5 colors in Magic. There's red, white, green, black, and white.
Blue. You said white twice.
Okay,
it's okay, but yeah.
And technically there's colorless, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
So if your commander is, say, blue, black, and green, then all the cards in your 100-card deck have to be some arrangement of those colors.
Mm-hmm. It's known as that's your commander's color identity. Those are the cards in your deck have to match your color's identity.
Yeah. And the same can be said for a commander. If it's just strictly a red card, a red mana commander, then your entire deck's basically just going to be made out of red mana cards.
Red and colorless, yes. So I have several decks, and I have learned over time to build my decks a certain way. So I want to talk about that real quick first. So what I do personally is I only have one deck, and I'm kind of working on another one, but it never gets played, and so I kind of stopped. But I sort of have 3 tiers of decks that I use, and I build my decks this way intentionally with this system in mind, where when I play new players, because I have a bit of experience under my belt, I know how to play the game, but with new players, I don't want to immediately make them scared of my deck. Nothing feels worse than if you're a new player to Commander than to sit down and you don't really know how to play the game, you have this deck you're excited about, and then you get absolutely curb stomped by somebody on turn 2 or 3. That sucks. And so I found that out pretty quickly. So I have a sort of a big beginner's deck that I like to play, and that is Fumiko the Low Blood. She's a mono red commander, and yes, she is chaotic because she what she says is creatures your opponents control must attack each combat if able. So it sort of forces combat, where a lot of times you don't want a lot of your utility creatures and stuff to attack, but if she's on the battlefield, they'll force them to. So she's an annoying commander to play against, but she's not game-breaking. She's mono-red. Every single card in the deck can just be destroyed or removed or whatever. So I like to play her with, new players who are just trying to learn the game. She's just sort of a fun commander to play. But then I go up to, and then I have a bunch of decks that I like to call mid-tier. And these are decks that I have built around that can win on turn 7, 8, 9. Generally somewhere in that range. If they're left to sort of get away with their devices, they can win on turn 7, 8, 9. If the game goes on that long, they can start to kind of pop off. And I have several decks in that category. My favorite is probably Krav and Regna, which is my Aristocrats deck. It's black and white, where it's basically just make a bajillion creatures and then sacrifice them for value. I can make a bunch of creatures and then have effects that say, when this creature dies, each opponent loses life and you gain life. Mm-hmm. So it can win that way.
For context, there are different kinds of commanders. You can either play a single legendary creature. You can play partner commanders, which are actually 2 creatures that have either the partner ability or are partnered with specific other legendary creatures. That's what Krav and Regna are. Yeah. And then you have just basic partners that you can partner with anyone else.
Right.
I have a deck like that. Mm-hmm. And then there's also background decks, which Jared has one of those. Yeah,
so, and that's where if your commander is a creature, and this is sort of a newer thing. I can't remember which set. I want to say Baldur's Gate.
I think the whole background thing got introduced when they were doing their crossover with D&D properties.
There was a Baldur's Gate set there, and I think there was something else too. But there are legendary creatures that say choose a background. And what that means is you get to pick these enchantment background cards that are also in the command zone. So, for example, one of my mid-tier decks, the decks that I'm talking about, is Lae'zel, Vlaakith's Champion, and she says choose a background. And my background for her is a legendary enchantment called Master Chef. That's a background. And they just kind of work in tandem to put 1/1 counters on things, because Lae'zel says if you would put a 1/1 counter on something, add an additional 1/1 counter to it. And Master Chef, the background, says commander creatures you have enter the battlefield with an extra 1/1 counter on, or with a 1/1 counter on it. And if you have your commander, other creatures enter the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it. Which means that if you have both Lae'zel and Master Chef out, all creatures enter the battlefield with at least 2 1/1 counters.
Not to mention everything else in his deck that's just like, oh, creatures enter with +1/+1 counter.
Yeah.
Oh, put +1/+1 counter on target creature. His deck gets out of control very quick, and you have creatures with 14 +1/+1 counters on them.
Exactly. So I have that. I have my Simic deck, which is green-blue value, landfall stuff. And then Arcades. Arcades is one of my favorites, too, because it's green, white, blue, and it cares about walls. You want to put a bunch of cheap creatures that have giant toughness on them, so like a 0/8, 0/7, walls. But then Arcades, the commander, says creatures you control with Defender can attack as though they didn't have Defender, and they attack with their toughness instead of their power.
Which means that cheap 0/8 wall that he put out
is hitting as an 8/8, basically. Yeah.
And for context, for those who are not familiar with how Magic the Gathering works, each creature card has a power and a toughness. Basically, the toughness is their health. Their power is like their attack strength. Cards that have Defender cannot attack. They can only block.
Normally, yes.
Yeah, normally they cannot attack.
Right.
Unless there's like a specific ability or something that says that they can. So that's basically context on like why that Arcades deck is
so terrifying.
Yeah.
Because he's basically playing a deck that's just about nothing but defenders
and
pretty
much.
walls,
Mm-hmm.
which in a normal circumstance he would not be able to attack with.
Mm-hmm.
However, with Arcades and his ability granting him the ability to attack with defenders, these defenders, more often than not, have high toughness. They're like 2-drop cards for a 0/8.
Well, 2-drop would be more like probably a 4 or 6, depending on other abilities. But the point.
But generally, the rate is really good. You can pay not much mana and if you have Arcades, ends up being a very big creature. But it only works if Arcades is out on the battlefield. If Arcades is not, then they're just normal walls. So I mean, it's scary. It can be really dangerous, but it can be dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have Kess, which is my Spellslinger deck. That is also in that tier. How
is that one only your mid tier?
It is mid tier because it cannot win. It cannot win until turn 8 or 9. That's why.
And it can be managed.
It can be managed. Yeah. That's how I measure my decks. Is what turn does this deck start winning?
I've beaten it before.
Yes. That's how I do that. So I only have one deck that I kind of consider at least semi-CEDH, and it's Najeela the Blade Blossom. It is a 5-color deck that can basically combo off by creating infinite warrior tokens and infinite combat steps. So, yeah.
I feel like we've played that deck at least once.
I don't think I have ever played Najeela against y'all once. I'm pretty sure I have not.
Mm-hmm.
I've told y'all about it, but I've...
Okay, yeah,
because
that might be what I'm thinking of, is that you mentioned it before.
I feel like if I did, I would get kicked out, and y'all would never want to talk to me again, so I've never pulled it out. I only get to play it a few times against my friend Thomas, who is the guy who sort of got me into Commander for a while. They sort of got me into Commander, but they like to play a little bit more competitively, and so I sort of had to adjust to the way they play my decks, and so but I only get to play Najeela sometimes, and so I haven't really bothered making more of those type of decks because I generally don't want to play that type of deck against just normal fun Commander play, so I just reserve it for whenever I play people like Thomas. So those are my decks. Who wants to go next?
Okay. I do not have mine divided into tiers. I think all of mine are fairly equal on the annoying scale. The first deck I actually built was a redo of one of my standard decks that just got set aside, and it is a mono-white token deck that kind of got converted to more of a token +1/+1 counter. It does something similar to Lae'zel, just not as extreme.
Yeah.
And it is Mikaeus, and he is a basically 1-drop creature with X as a colorless that he enters with a certain number of +1/+1 counters. You can tap him to add counters, tap him to remove counters to all creatures.
Now, Mikaeus was your first Commander deck, correct?
Mikaeus was my very first deck I built because I had converted it over, built it, brought it over to you and said, "Here, look."
Yes, that's sort of how you got introduced to Commander, right? Was you thinking about what you wanted to do, and you kind of ended up building a Mikaeus deck?
Yeah.
Right?
Adam had the one pre-built deck that he had bought from Walmart, and you let me play one of yours so that you could introduce us to how to play.
Right.
And I built Mikaeus after that.
Yes.
And that was the first deck I built. And then I also redid my Simic deck, but ended up changing it from what it was originally, which was just some Simic deck, to a poison counter deck with all the toxic and infect and all the things to win by basically putting 10 poison counters instead of
and that's something I want to point out real quick is in normal Magic you have to get 10 poison counters on someone to kill them. If you want to kill them with poison counters, it needs to be 10. Well, okay, in Commander everybody's life total starts at 40 because it's meant to be sort of a long-term multiplayer game, and so everybody's life total starts at 40. You have a 100-card deck, but guess what? The rules for poison counters remains the same in Commander, meaning that if you get someone with 10 poison counters, they lose
automatically. You can either win in Commander. You can either win by removing the 40 life from your opponent, like point blank, just hit them hard and hit them constantly. You take out their life. That's the pretty common way to win. You can, if you hit them with your commander enough,
commander damage,
21 commander damage on them, and it has to be combat damage. It
has to be combat damage, and it has to be with that same commander.
Yes, and it is not commander damage for all commanders. You have to get that commander damage from that one commander.
You have to track each commander card separately.
So if me, Adam, and Jared are playing, I have 2 separate dice or 2 separate commander damage set up for each of their commanders. And if you have a partner deck like his Krav and Ragna, technically you have 3 because you have to keep up with one for Krav, one for Ragna, and one for Adam's commander, whatever deck he may be playing.
Yeah.
So it can get pretty complicated pretty quick depending on how many people are playing and how many commanders are on the field at any given point.
And by the way, the rule is once you've taken 21 commander damage from a commander, you lose.
Basically half your life in
rounded, like a little bit over half your life, 21.
I do want to interject and apologize to all of those who everything we're saying is just going like completely over everyone's head.
Hope you're at least enjoying it. Hey, we have fun here.
But there are other win conditions that are the same in Commander versus Standard or the other. You can run out of cards to draw. You can, as he said, the poison counters. You can.
That's all that I know of. I think
there's certain that have specific win conditions.
Yeah.
Like he has a card in one of his decks that says if you have exactly 13 cards in your hand at upkeep, if you have exactly 13 cards in your hand on your upkeep, you win the game.
There's
Like, point blank.
there's a black enchantment, I believe, that says during your upkeep, if you have, I think, 20 treasures or something like that, treasure tokens, you win the game.
Hellkite Tyrant. If you have 20 artifacts, if you control 20 artifacts, you win the game. Like, there's other cards that give specific win conditions that you can win.
Yeah, there are alternate win conditions.
The standard is poison, running out of life, commander damage, like milling out, those kind of things.
Yeah. There are multiple ways to win.
My Simic deck plays off of poison counters. The whole reason it wins is because I get a couple of infect counters, poison counters on my opponents, and then I just sit there and proliferate, which means put another counter, put another counter, put another counter. That's the whole reason that deck works. I have a Spellsinger deck, Jaliva, and she likes to steal people's stuff. Basically, when she enters the battlefield, however much mana was spent to summon her, and that goes up every time she leaves the battlefield. Every time she leaves the battlefield, it goes up by 2. So it starts out 4, 6, 8, continues. Whenever she enters, however much was spent, your opponents mill that many cards, and I get access to the instants or sorceries that they
Well, I guess technically
milled.
they exile that many cards.
Well, not exile.
Mill. Yeah.
They exile.
Yeah.
And for, again, context from the stupidly simplified glossary, milling is basically when you take the top however many cards of your library or your deck, and you put them either into the graveyard or out of the game.
In exile.
In exile, yes.
Once they are in exile, there are only specific conditions that can get them back. Like I said, Jaliva exiles. Yeah. And she can play cards she exiles if they're instants or sorceries. However, once she leaves the battlefield again, they're all just exiled at that point. But her deck is very much built around, I'm going to take your stuff and you're not allowed to have it. And then I have a pirate deck, and it is a partner deck. It is Dargo and Malcolm. They're pirates. One says whenever a pirate deals combat damage to a player, I get a treasure. And treasure is an artifact that you sacrifice to get mana, and which is what you use to play cards. And then Dargo has, for each artifact sacrificed, reduce his summoning cost by 2. He's technically a 7-drop for a 7/7 with trample, or 5/7 with trample, something like that.
Yeah, but you can get them out really cheaply and early.
But yeah, I can, if I sacrifice 2 treasures and then use 1 treasure to pay the 1 red that is required, he comes out for basically a 1-drop. Mm-hmm. Just point blank, a 1-drop.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he's very easy to get out very early, and that deck is mean too. Like, I know it's mean because it can get out fast and it can hit hard.
But, so, really quickly, I know you're talking about your pirate deck. I love that you can just build all kinds of themed decks in Commander and Magic. Mm-hmm. So, she has a pirate deck. You could have a dinosaur deck. You could have, like, a werewolf deck, an angel deck, and they all do different things. It's great. That's what I like about Magic.
I very much enjoy themed decks. I have, like I said, I have that pirate deck. I also have a dragon deck, which is all themed. Hellkite Tyrant, which we were just talking about, is in that deck because he's a dragon.
Yeah.
It very much... The dragon deck is mean because once I get my commander out, I win in 2 turns if it's not dealt with. Because...
Double strike.
Because double strike... And it's already a 6. Mm-hmm. So double strike means that if it hits, it technically hits twice.
That's 12, and
12 damage.
More than half commander damage.
Yep. So. And so the next turn, if it hits again, that's game over for whoever I hit. So yeah, Atarka is my dragon deck, and it is mean, but it's fun, and it also has a lot of weaknesses. Point blank, that deck, a board wipe will take me out of the game. Because it is not an easy to build up deck. It takes a while to get built and get going. Mm-hmm. And so if I get a board wipe halfway through, I'm out. I can't recover from that very well. That's its biggest weakness. And I've dealt with that many, many, many times. Mm-hmm. And then my last one, the one I just built, is what I call my familiar deck. And it is also a partner deck because I've discovered that I absolutely love partners.
It's great. You get to partner up kind of whoever, and it helps you get whatever colors you want in your deck. I mean, it's
because
nice.
your partners don't have to be the same color. Mm-hmm. Like my familiar deck, I have Ishai, which is a white blue, and Kedis, which is red. And its whole premise is to buff my commander and keep other people from messing with it. Because Kedis allows my commander creatures that whenever it does combat damage to one player, it does that much damage to all other opponents.
Yeah.
And Ishai gets a +1/+1 counter for each spell my opponents cast. So basically, my opponents are making it bigger by making their plays throughout the turn. Yeah. And then I can swing at one person and do a whole bunch of damage to everybody.
Yeah, and if it's us three, Adam, me, and you, that's a good thing. Like, I might have one flying blocker, but if Adam doesn't have a flying blocker, you just hit him, and that hits me too.
Yep. So I can hit whoever doesn't have any defenses and just whittle everybody's health down.
Pretty
and
scary.
then the whole rest of that deck is built around, oh, you want to target my commander? It costs extra. Oh, you want to target my commander? Here's a counter spell, which basically is like you cast a spell to stop them from whatever they were doing.
Right.
And oh, you want to do this? Well, it has indestructible, so it can't die, or it has hexproof, so you can't target it. Like, there are so many things that you can do to protect a creature if you really want to. And that's what that whole deck is built around. Mm-hmm. Is basically, I'm going to make this one creature really, really big. Well, more accurately, you're going to make this one creature really, really big.
Yes.
And then I'm going to punish you for it.
Yeah.
And then Kedis is going to make it to where it punishes everyone for it.
That's right.
And I just built it. I have only played it once or twice.
Like once or twice.
And we've been working on tweaking it still because it's not perfect. I mean, none of my decks are really perfect.
Still really good. It's gotten close to winning, I think, both times. It's gotten one turn away from winning both times.
Yeah. And it is
scary.
Fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
But it's one thing I like about it and my pirate deck are both that they recover quickly. Like where my dragon deck lacks in recovery, those two do not. Those two, it's pretty easy to get stuff back out if I get a board wipe.
Yeah.
So if I lose all my creatures or all my enchantments or whatever, I usually can go back in and rebuild what's on my field pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
My pirate deck's really good at that. My pirate deck is really good at that. Because Malcolm is not expensive to get out. Dargo is not expensive to get out.
Yeah.
And all I need is a couple of little cheap pirates, which my deck is built around. We discovered I have a penchant for liking low mana curve decks.
Aggro decks, basically.
Specifically red.
Yeah.
Red, low mana.
A lot of your decks have red in them. Yep, that's true.
Now this is the part where you're all gonna be completely underwhelmed by the decks I have.
Oh no! Don't sell yourself short. By the way, Adam has killed me multiple times.
Of playable decks that I have currently, I only have 3. One that started as a pre-con that I've made various tweaks at, which is just my draw deck. Its commander is Nekuzar, which I have apparently learned that Nekuzar is a very loved and yet hated commander.
Yeah.
Because I was we were at a game shop at one point, and we were just playing a game of Commander for fun.
While we were waiting for the pre-release.
Yeah, while we were waiting for the next pre-release. And one of the game shop owners came over and was like, hey, what commander are you playing? Nekuzar. Oh, I just lost a little bit of respect for you. I was like, why? And then it was explained to me later that apparently Nekuzar is a commander that a lot of competitive players
use to just kind of kill people quickly. But the way you build it is not like that. You build it pretty much to where you just want to play it and make a bunch of people draw a bunch of cards.
Yeah.
Which is, to me, the way it's meant to be played.
Yeah, because that's basically the whole shtick behind my draw deck is that the vast majority of cards in my draw deck make you draw cards, because Nekuzar's ability is whenever he's on the field, on your draw step, you will draw an additional card along with a card from just your initial draw. So on your draw phase, you will draw your normal card, and then you will draw an additional card. Now, Nekuzar's ability, his second ability, is that every card you draw from your deck deals a point of damage.
Opponents.
Yeah, it doesn't penalize him.
No, yeah, I am completely safe from this ability, but my opponents are not. But, and now, that 1 point of damage doesn't sound like a lot. However, Nekuzar alone is making you draw 2 cards every turn. So that's 2 damage before your turn even begins.
And if your opponent has a way to draw more cards, that's going to hurt them.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Even more, because it's every card you draw, you're taking a point of damage.
Yeah, we have faced that several times where we're playing decks. It's like, draw a card for this and this and this, and we're sitting there taking 4, 5, 6 damage a turn because we've drawn extra cards.
Oh, yeah.
And so
It very quickly
that deck, my draw deck is basically built around making them draw a whole bunch of crap and being punished for it. Whereas I reward myself for drawing stuff, because there's one particular card, Shieldred, who, whenever an opponent draws a card, they get dealt 2 damage.
Right.
And I get healed 2 damage.
They specifically lose 2 life. And there is a distinction between taking damage and losing life.
Sometimes.
Because like the Wandering Emperor that I have in my deck specifically says you cannot take damage from non-combat sources. So that protects me against Nekuzar. It does not, however, protect me against Sheldred, who says you lose life.
Right.
Because they are 2 different things, and they can make a difference. And it sucks. Because
Yeah,
I've lost to that distinction before.
Yeah, and so that's Shieldred's thing is whenever opponents draw cards, they lose 2 life, and whenever I draw a card, I gain 2 life.
For every card.
Yeah, for every card I draw, I gain 2 life.
And by the way, that stacks with Nekuzar, too.
Yes, it does.
So
that's what that's what it's built around. They get punished for drawing all these cards, whereas I reward myself for all the cards I draw, and plus I have cards that make it to where I have no maximum hand size, and your normal maximum hand size is 7.
It is 7, yeah.
Normally, you're only allowed to have 7 cards in your hand at any given point.
And if you have more than that, when you finish your turn, you have to discard down to 7 before it moves to the next player.
I want to be clear, the only time that comes into play is after your end step, which is called your cleanup step. So in your cleanup step, if you have more than your maximum hand size, you have to discard down to hand size.
Yeah.
There's another card that is in that draw deck, Delve into the Abyss or something like that.
Peer into the Abyss?
Yeah, Peer into the Abyss.
Yeah.
Where it's like, the whole thing is, when I play this card, it's one of the higher mana value cards in my deck, but the payoff is completely worth the pay.
Especially if you have Nekuzar.
Yeah.
Now, the deal is, this card makes a person draw half of their library.
Well, first you lose half your life.
Well, no, you draw the cards and then you lose your life.
Do you? For some reason I thought you lost the life first, because that puts you lower.
You draw half your deck and then you lose half your life rounded down. Or rounded up.
If you're still alive at that point. Because if Nekuzar's out and half your library is 50 cards, or we'll say 40 cards, because it is a pretty high expensive card. So if you're already at 80 cards and you have to draw 40 of them,
you just
and
lost 40
Nekuzar
life.
Is out, that's 40 life right there. And
you did.
then whatever is left, you lose half of that. It's
If you get to resolve that card against somebody, that's basically a death knell.
It is almost a guaranteed win. Like, I don't think either one of us have ever survived it if it resolved.
No, yeah. Like
We've
we've had to stop it from resolving one way or another.
We've countered it a few times, or I've exiled it, or
whatever,
milled it, or whatever, depending.
But if you're just able to cast it and get away with it, somebody's gonna die.
Yeah, almost guaranteed.
Somebody's dead.
Unless they are playing a huge life gain deck that puts them above their
And even then, they're still probably going to die because they're going to lose half their life anyway. So
And then
even with life gain, they're probably still going to die.
Well, they're going to lose half their life, and then they're going to be low and get hit pretty hard, probably. But the only thing with that is, yeah, you have to be able to get it to resolve. And Jared and I both run a lot of counter spells in like our blue decks and whatnot.
In our blue decks, yeah.
But yeah, so that was my first commander deck that I made.
Yeah.
And it's one of my more oftenly used ones.
Yeah.
The next deck I made was my mill deck, which I aptly just nicknamed "You Shall Mill It All."
And that's Phoenix.
Yeah, that's my Phoenix deck, which Phoenix is a blue and black god creature that whenever he's out on the field, all creatures I control have the ability that I can tap them, and whatever their toughness is, my opponent, I think its target opponent has to mill however many cards that card's equal to that card's toughness.
Yeah. Big booty mill.
And so, like, a vast majority of the cards in that deck are geared towards making people mill cards from their decks or exile. My mill deck kind of goes both ways. It either exiles or it just sends it to the graveyard, depending on what card I use. And I have some creatures who run their power and toughness off of however many cards are in exile or however many cards are in the graveyard.
Oh yeah, and I just want to say I've died multiple times to Phoenix, multiple times.
Yeah, my mill deck is one that I actually converted from standard.
Yeah,
like originally it was It was a deck that I made back in the Theros block when it first came out.
Yeah. And
what made me build it was when we were doing the pre-release for Theros, one of the first packs I opened had an Ashiok in it.
Yeah.
And, like, it was a Planeswalker. And I was like, oh, holy shit. So immediately I just built around this Planeswalker. Now, I suck at building decks.
You're getting better, though.
I'm getting better because y'all are helping me actually think things through. But yeah, that's more or less my mill deck.
Yeah.
The last deck that I currently have, or no, actually I have 4. I have 4 now because I just had my recently made one.
True.
My third deck is my own token deck, which I aptly named Token Monstrosity because when I made it, I thought it was trash.
Yeah.
It gets out of control fast.
It gets out of hand. I mean, it's done really well several times.
As long as I can get things out there.
Yeah, there was a game not too long ago where you had a bunch of tokens out, and it was real scary.
And like this token deck, its commander is Genevieve or something.
I'm trying to think. Gosh,
it's over there. Otherwise, I look. I feel like
Jeannie Faye.
Yeah, Jeannie Faye.
That's it, Jeannie Faye.
Basically, she's a legendary creature.
Red, green, white.
Yeah, she's red, green, white. And basically, her ability is if a token gets summoned out, I can basically, instead of whatever those tokens are supposed to be, I can make that many cat or dog tokens. The cats have haste, the dogs have vigilance. And so my deck was basically built around 3 token groups. There's the dogs. So I have a few different cards that allow me to summon varieties of dog and wolf tokens. And then I have cats.
And stuff that boosts your cat.
Yeah, stuff that boosts my cats and allows me to summon different types of cat warriors and soldiers and stuff like that.
And lets you destroy stuff if your cats hit us.
Yes. And then it has goblins. And the goblins basically, like, they're the ones who have the most use of haste
and
other bonus stuff. like all the goblin cards that are in there, they either A, summon more goblins, or B, boost the goblins that I have.
Right.
So that's kind of the whole shtick of my token deck is most things in there summon more creature or summon more tokens, buff those tokens, and basically allows me to have a whole bunch of crap on the field that I can then swing with a really, really big bat.
And then has stuff like Parallel Lives and Doubling Season, which says that when you would create a number of tokens, you create double that instead. So, this card that's going to create 4 tokens now suddenly creates 8. And God forbid he has both out, because those 4 suddenly become 16.
Actually, to add on to that, I have 3 different variants.
Oh, God, what's the third one?
Okay, I have Doubling Season, which
Parallel Lives, yeah.
Yeah, I have Doubling Season, I have Parallel Lives, and I have Primal Vigor.
Oh, yeah.
Which Primal Vigor actually has 3 different abilities. It has a thing where, like, if you bring out tokens, you get twice that many tokens. Mm-hmm. If you bring out +1/+1 counters, you bring out twice the +1/+1 counters.
Yeah.
And then, like, for every land you put out, you gain 3 life. So I basically have 3 cards that stack on top of each other.
It gets out of control.
So many tokens. So many tokens. So many kitties and dogs.
And goblins.
Uh-huh. Oh, my.
Though, again, that's if I can get the deck rolling. Because whereas they have a lot of decks that either hit hard and quick or burn after a certain amount of time, my decks have a high tendency of variability.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I can get just the right string going, I can end the game within a few turns.
Oh, yeah.
Other times, it takes a minute for my decks to really pop off.
Yeah.
And then when they do start popping off, then they start doing shit.
Yeah.
Like I said before when we were testing this new deck that you just finished, the biggest problem I've noticed with your decks, and I think it's with most of them, is yours takes a lot of build-ups to start hurting. Mm-hmm. Whereas we do a lot of stuff that it's like round 2 or 3 we're doing stuff. Yours tend to not really start doing a lot till 5 or 6. I mean, once they start doing stuff, they hurt, but it takes a little longer for it to get off the ground. Mm-hmm. And that's been a big thing I've noticed, is that you are open for a while. And it's easy to get early damage in on you.
Yeah, and part of that has to do with my absolutely god-awful RNG.
Yeah.
You do have some ways of dealing with early threats. You have some ways of dealing with that.
Yeah, I have some ways of dealing with certain things. It's just the fact that for whatever reason, my RNG is extremely shit. I have plenty of cards that are able to deal with plenty of situations and things. I just have to have those cards. And half the time, I don't have those cards. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's my token deck. Nice. And then this newest deck that I made, that I recently started with, is my Landfall deck. Everything in the Landfall deck is built around the ability Landfall, which Landfall is an ability that is whenever a land enters your side of the field, an ability pops off.
Something happens.
Yeah.
So, and it's everything from you gain life to you get tokens, or you get to do this or that or whatever. Landfall has all the different things that trigger when a land enters the battlefield.
Mm-hmm. And that's what this deck is built around. And my commander, which is Omnath, it has 3 different triggers based on how many lands I can get out on my turn. Mm-hmm. The first time the ability resolves,
Omnath, Locus of Creation.
Yeah, that.
Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life if this is the first time. If it's the second time, add the 4 mana. And if it's third time, it deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control.
Okay, so
because you killed my commander with it.
Oh, it's when it enters the battlefield. That's the draw thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew there was something that hurt your opponent.
How does that hit planes? Or how does that hit commanders?
Not commanders. planeswalkers. If it's the third time, Omnath deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control.
Okay, I thought you said it was killing your commander.
No, it wasn't killing my commander. It was killing one of my planeswalkers I had out.
Yeah.
That I got to use like twice because it kept doing 4 damage and I couldn't.
It's a planeswalker killer.
Each color has something that they do and they do well. Red is very much burn. Red is very much you do a lot of damage with spells and
creatures,
stuff like that. Creatures that you can tap to do damage, stuff like that.
Yeah.
White is good for life gain. Blue is control.
Removals.
Yeah. Blue is control, which is basically, you're not allowed to play that. You're not allowed to play that. I'm going to take that. Thank you. Black is good for
everything. Black is kind of good at everything. It can draw cards. It destroys creatures really well. It's really good removal. It has big creatures. It has, I already said, card draw. There's some ramp. It has life gain. Black kind of does everything. Let's be real.
Green is good for.
Well, okay. Sorry. The one biggest thing that black is good for is graveyard.
Oh yeah.
More often than not, if you're playing a black deck, you're going to be having a lot of cards in that deck that allow you to play things out of your graveyard.
Yeah. And then green, like he said, is good for mana ramping and bringing out really big creatures that hit really hard and have trample. So
Big
basically
bump.
Summoning out this 10/10 creature that has trample. So no matter if you block it or not, if you don't block all the damage, it's still going through.
Yeah.
Like each color has one thing that they're really good at, and then dip their toes into everything else.
Yeah.
To an extent. Like most of them don't. Blue's really the only one that has much in the way of control. Red has like deflecting SWAT, which I love.
Blue and black are kind of the control colors.
Deflecting SWAT is a red card?
Yes.
It is the only mono red card in my
Kedis
and Ishai.
Ishai
And Kedis. Deflecting SWAT is the only mono red card in that deck, besides Kedis himself.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, deflecting SWAT is red.
I thought it was blue.
Nope.
You may be thinking of Fierce
is.
Guardianship is blue, which does a similar thing. Like if you have your commander, you pay 0.
Deflecting SWAT. I think deflecting SWAT's a little better.
I love deflecting SWAT.
Just for context here, deflecting SWAT. If something is targeting, say, your commander, if something says
if anything is targeting anything, you can deflect and SWAT.
Let's say one of your opponents plays an exile card where they're like exile target creature. You can play deflecting SWAT, which says counter it and choose new targets. Or choose new target for the spell.
For target spell or effect.
Or ability. Yeah.
Or ability.
So basically that exile that was going for your creature, you can turn around and send it right back in exile theirs instead. It is so good. Mm-hmm. And the best part is, if you control your commander, it's free. You don't have to pay to use it.
Mm-hmm. It's dumb. But yeah, that's basically all the decks that I currently have. I'm in the process of making other ones. But those are the ones that I have right now at the moment. I don't really have a tier for my deck specifically. And I honestly, like, if I were to give my decks to like someone else who had high penchants, I thought, like, if I was to give my decks to one of y'all, I can about guarantee that y'all will probably be able to be winning pretty easily with my decks.
I just want to say that so proxies are kind of a point of contention in like the Magic and especially Commander community. Some people don't like it when other people play proxies. Proxies are not legally allowed like in official tournament settings. However, so for people who don't know, proxies are basically just a way of playing Magic the Gathering or Commander or whatever without using real cards. You can print them out. You can just write on a sheet of paper. You have something that says, this is the card that I want it to be, and you put that in your deck, whether you sleeve it up or whatever. So some people are good with proxies, some people are not. I am personally me, and I've played Magic for a while now. I am very pro proxies.
It's great because it means that people who don't have a lot of spare money, because like for me and Adam, we've got 3 kids. We're a family of 5 living on one income. We don't have a lot of spare money to be going and buying Magic cards. We do a pre-release every once in a while, occasionally buy a booster pack. But like we can't go drop $1,000 on a single card. That's not an option.
That's exactly it. Yeah, go ahead.
And, however, I can go print off said card and use it in my deck because we're not playing competitively. Our fun comes from building the decks that we want to play. It doesn't come from, haha, I built a better deck than you and I have all the money to buy the actual cards for it.
So, yeah, proxies are awesome.
They are, and it's great because it levels the playing field, lets people like us who would not be able to afford to go buy all these cards.
Because otherwise we'd be costed out, you know. Now certain tables, this is a thing where I think every individual table needs to kind of
make that decision.
Has to make that decision. Yeah. And proxies kind of let you build the deck you want to build without worrying about your wallet, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a website called Scryfall that we use for just that purpose. We go on, we build our decks, we build them the way we want to, and then we can get the images and download them and print them off to use as proxies.
Yeah, that's what we do at our table anyway.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to say about Adam's deck, Nekuzar. Sorry, it just occurred to me that Nekuzar is the draw deck.
Yeah.
One thing that occurred to me that I just remembered is there's a card in his deck that allows for another different win condition, and that is grafted exoskeleton.
Oh, how did we not talk about grafted
Well,
exoskeleton?
I was going to,
man.
but we got sidetracked. Grafted exoskeleton, basically any damage dealt by the creature it's attached to is infect damage instead of regular damage. So Nekuzar's, you take 2 damage for drawing cards every turn. Well, that's now 2 infect damage, which means that if he gets that out and manages to make you draw 10 cards, it's game over right then.
So, and that's any damage. That's the key part. It doesn't just have to be combat damage.
Why it's also in my Ishai deck, because Ishai does damage to, or Kedis has Ishai do damage to all opponents.
Right.
Which is one of the ways I really want to win with that deck at some point is get Ishai out and get grafted exoskeleton on it and do the toxic damage.
Yeah.
But the only drawback with that is it is an artifact, which means it can be destroyed.
Yeah.
And you cannot change what it's equipped to. Because if you unequip it, you have to sacrifice the creature that it was equipped to.
Quick interjection of fun fact. Magic the Gathering is actually what inspired the card game for Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh, I didn't know that. Or
Yeah.
did I? Huh. I don't know.
When the anime for Yu-Gi-Oh! First came out, they didn't have a card game.
Okay.
Like, they didn't have a real physical game.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get that out until the show started actually getting popular, and then fans were wanting to play the game that was on the show. And then the people were like, well, we don't...
we need to make a game.
Guys, we need a game. We don't even know how the game works in the show. Just
Make it
just
work.
make something.
Make it
Base
work.
it off of something. I don't care.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Magic the Gathering. Yeah, just do that. Do that.
Yep.
Switch some of the rules up a little bit. Make it to where you have to sacrifice certain things to bring out big things, but just do it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Magic the Gathering was a inspiration for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game.
Right.
So we had a lot of fun talking about Magic and talking about the decks we play.
Yeah.
Y'all got to see the underwhelmment that is my decks and the overflow of...
Never sell yourself short. Your decks are good. All of our decks are really good. We have a lot of fun. It is one of those games where it's like a competitive game. Magic is not really a cooperative game unless you play like Two-Headed Giant or Teams. That's something we haven't really done. But
yeah, that's a completely different format.
This is more... Yeah, Commander is more of like a free-for-all. You're trying to not die and you're trying for your opponents to die. So
Pretty much.
Though you can make deals and team up to
Oh,
take
yeah.
out an especially threatening
politics are a part of the game.
Like
I know a lot of people who hate the politics. Like, I don't want any part to do with it. But to me, it's one of the most fun parts.
enemies of my enemies are my allies.
Temporarily,
That
yes.
kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
If you don't kill me, I will help you kill your opponent. Which is also my opponent.
Yep.
Etc.
Yep. Well, we hope you all enjoyed this episode. If you did, leave a like, a comment, a share with your friends, share with the family, share with your household pets, share with your goldfish, share with the imaginary fairy that lives up in the basement.
Yeah, see if they want
Up in
to.
your basement.
Yes, up in the basement.
And down in the attic. And ask if they want to play Magic the Gathering with you.
If you all enjoyed this episode, like I said before, leave all the likes, all the comments.
All the
tell
social
us-
media stuff.
Tell us what cards you like to play, if you play. What your favorite colors are. What kind of commanders you like to run.
Your opinion on proxies.
And
Yeah.
if you don't play Magic the Gathering at all, let us know if you were bored or at least semi-entertained by all the jargon and mumbo jumbo that you probably didn't understand. Sorry.
Indeed. And so we will hopefully be able to see y'all in the next episode.
Yep. See you next time.
Until then, I'm Adam,
I'm Jared.
And I'm Kat.
and this has been the Because Nobody Cares podcast. Y'all have a good day.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.